Rain hammered against the windows as thunder rolled over the small suburban house. Inside, Ethan Cole, a man known for his rigid discipline and obsession with order, paced the living room floor. His jaw was clenched tight, his eyes fixed on the open drawer of his study desk. Inside it, an envelope that once held $100 was now empty. He turned sharply toward his wife, Lila, who stood near the kitchen, her hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. She was 9 months pregnant, frail, exhausted, and moments away from tears. "Where is it, Lila?" Ethan demanded, his voice cold and shaking with barely contained rage. "You were the only one in this house today. Where's my money?" Lila's lips trembled. "Ethan, I told you I didn't take it. Maybe it fell, maybe—" "Don't lie to me," he snapped, slamming his fist on the table so hard that the vase on it toppled and shattered. "You think I'm stupid? You think you can steal from me and play innocent?" Tears streamed down her face as she stepped back. "Please, Ethan, I swear on our baby I didn't." But he was past reason. He had always been a man who trusted numbers more than people, records more than words. To him, a missing $100 was not about the money. It was a violation, a betrayal. That night, when the police came, Lila was too stunned to fight back. Ethan filed a report claiming she had stolen the money to feed her secret shopping habits. The officers hesitated when they saw her condition, but Ethan's influence in the town was strong. He was a respected banker, a donor, a man whose words carried weight. As the police car drove her away, her tear-streaked face pressed against the glass. She whispered through sobs, "You'll regret this, Ethan." For the first time that night, he looked away. Days turned into weeks. Lila was sent to a local detention facility under investigation. Ethan tried to justify his actions, telling himself it was the principle that mattered. He slept in the empty bed beside her pillow, ignoring the silence that grew heavier with each passing day. Then one morning, a call shattered his carefully constructed certainty. "Mr. Cole?" The voice on the phone trembled. "It's about your wife. She went into labor last night." Ethan's heart froze. "What?" "But she's in jail. She can't." "She delivered early," the voice continued. "But there were complications. You should come immediately." He didn't even grab his coat. He drove like a madman through the rain, his hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. When he arrived, the sterile hospital corridors seemed endless. He saw her through the glass window, Lila lying pale and weak on the bed, clutching a tiny bundle wrapped in white. Her eyes were half open, her breath shallow. He entered slowly, his voice breaking. "Lila, I—" She looked at him, and for the first time, there was no love in her eyes, only exhaustion and pain. "You didn't believe me," she whispered weakly. "You destroyed me for $100. Ethan's throat tightened. "I was wrong. I thought—" "You thought your pride was worth more than your family." The nurse approached quietly, holding a clipboard. "Sir, we did everything we could. The baby, he's alive, but he's weak. He'll need care." Ethan's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the tiny face, his son. "Lila, please, let's fix this. I'll get you home. But Lila's hand slipped from his. Her eyes closed, her chest still. "Lila?" His voice cracked. "Lila." The monitor flatlined. In that frozen moment, the man who once prided himself on control fell to his knees beside the bed, clutching her cold hand and sobbing uncontrollably. The $100 suddenly felt like a curse, a meaningless number that had cost him everything. After the funeral, Ethan withdrew from everyone. The town that once respected him now whispered behind his back. Even his own bank board pressured him to step down. Too many bad headlines, too much scandal. One evening, as he sat alone in the dark nursery, the baby's soft cries echoed through the room. Ethan walked the crib, staring down at his son. His tiny hands reached up, fragile and trembling. Ethan picked him up, tears falling freely. "I'll make it right," he whispered. "I promise I'll make it right." But fate wasn't done with him yet. The next morning, he received a letter, hand-delivered, no return address. Inside was a photo of a smiling Lila holding an infant taken just days before her arrest. Behind her, on the table, was the same envelope with $100 still inside it. And written on the back, in unfamiliar handwriting, were 4 chilling words. It was never missing. Ethan's hands trembled as he read it again and again. His mind spiraled. Who took the photo? Who sent it? He rushed to his old study, tearing open drawers, papers flying across the room. Then he froze. Beneath a pile of old bank receipts lay a small envelope, identical to the one that had started it all. He opened it. Inside was a crisp $100 bill, untouched. His breath hitched. Someone had set him up, and as he sank into his chair, realization dawning. He remembered something. His young assistant, Mark, had been in the house that morning to deliver documents. Mark, the same man who had always admired Ethan's wife a little too much. Ethan's pulse began to throb in his temples as fragments of memory came rushing back. Mark, tall, polite, always a little too smooth with his words, had smiled that morning when Ethan handed him a coffee. He'd lingered near the study desk longer than necessary, pretending to check the papers. Ethan remembered the faint smell of Mark's cologne that lingered even after he left. It had seemed harmless then. But now, that same scent seemed to haunt the air, taunting him. He rose from his chair, gripping the envelope until it crumpled in his fist. Rage pulsed through his veins, hot and suffocating. The truth had been there all along, hiding beneath his arrogance. His wife, his sweet, trusting Lila, had been innocent, and he had destroyed her because of a lie, a trap that someone else had carefully set. He barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lila's pale face, heard her whisper, "You destroyed me for $100. The words echoed like a curse. When dawn finally broke, Ethan's reflection in the mirror startled him. His eyes were hollow, his hair disheveled, his skin ashen. The confident man he once was had vanished, replaced by a ghost fueled by guilt and fury. By noon, he was parked outside the sleek glass building where Mark now worked, a promotion Ethan himself had once recommended before his resignation. He watched from the car as Mark strolled out with his usual swagger, laughing with a co-worker, looking every bit the man whose life was perfectly in order. Ethan waited until he was alone, then stepped out. Mark. The younger man froze mid-step, his smile fading. "Mr. Cole?" He blinked in surprise, masking it quickly with a courteous grin. "Didn't expect to see you here. How's everything?" "Cut the act," Ethan said sharply. His voice was low, but carried a dangerous edge. "You were in my house the day Lila was arrested. You remember?" Mark's eyes flickered, just for a second. "Of course. I dropped off the quarterly reports, like you asked." "Why?" Ethan took a step closer. "Because you were the only other person who could have touched that drawer." Mark's lips parted in mock confusion. "I don't know what you're implying." "You planted that envelope," Ethan interrupted, his tone shaking. "You set her up. You wanted her gone." Mark laughed softly, too smoothly. "That's absurd. You think I'd risk everything for what? A missing $100. Ethan's fist tightened. "Not for the money. For her." The smile faltered. For a heartbeat, something dark flickered in Mark's eyes, a flash of guilt, quickly masked by indifference. "You've lost your mind," he said coolly, straightening his jacket. "I think grief is making you imagine things. You should get some help." Ethan's breath trembled. He could feel his sanity slipping, the line between grief and vengeance blurring. "She's dead because of you," he whispered. Mark gave a small, dismissive shrug and turned away. "Then maybe you should have trusted her." Those words hit like a dagger. Before Ethan realized what he was doing, he grabbed Mark by the collar and slammed him against the side of his car. Papers scattered to the ground as Mark gasped, eyes wide. "You ruined her life." Ethan roared, his voice cracking with fury and sorrow. People nearby turned to look, startled. Mark quickly raised his hands, pretending to be calm. "You want to hit me? Go ahead, but you got no proof." Ethan's grip faltered. He knew Mark was right. There was no proof, only suspicion, a single photo, and a heart full of guilt. If he attacked him now, he'd only look like a madman unraveling under grief. Slowly, trembling, Ethan released him and stepped back. Mark adjusted his collar, smirking faintly. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said quietly, "but maybe it's time you let the past rest." Then he walked away, leaving Ethan standing in the cold sunlight, trembling and hollow. That night, Ethan sat in the nursery again, holding his son, Noah, in his arms. The baby's small breaths were soft, rhythmic, unaware of the storm surrounding him. Ethan rocked him gently, whispering, "Your mother didn't deserve what happened. I'll make it right. Noah, I swear it." As he spoke, his eyes fell on the envelope again. The handwriting on the photo's back. It wasn't Mark's. It was neat, feminine, almost elegant. Someone else had sent it. Someone who knew. He pulled out the photo once more, staring at every detail. The background, the tablecloth, the vase of flowers, the sunlight through the window. And then he noticed something he hadn't before, a faint reflection in the glass behind Lila. A face. A woman's face. He squinted closer. The image was blurry but unmistakable. A nurse. Lila's friend from the prenatal clinic. Maybe? Her name, what was it? Clara. Yes, Clara Bennett. Lila had mentioned her once or twice. Said she was kind, that she'd been helping her with checkups when Ethan was too busy to come. Without hesitation, Ethan reached for his phone and searched her name. She still worked at the same clinic. The next morning, he went there. The waiting room smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. When he saw Clara, she froze mid-step, recognition flashing in her eyes. "Mr. Cole," she said cautiously. "I need to talk to you," he said. "It's about Lila." Clara hesitated, glancing around nervously before gesturing toward an empty consultation room. Once inside, she closed the door and folded her arms. "I was wondering when you'd come." Ethan frowned. "So it was you who sent the photo." Clara nodded slowly. "I couldn't live with it anymore. What happened to Lila, it wasn't fair. Tell me everything." She sighed, sitting down. "Lila came to me the day before she was arrested. She was terrified. She told me you accused her of stealing. But she also said she thought someone was trying to frame her, someone close to you. She didn't want to make trouble, but she was scared. That morning, while she was at the house, a man came by, said he worked for you, asked for your signature on a few forms. I saw him once before when he came to pick up files. A tall man, dark hair, confident smile. Mark." Ethan muttered, jaw tightening. Clara nodded. "Yes, that's him. I didn't know what he wanted, but I took that photo for her. She wanted proof of where she was and what she did that day, just in case. She said, if something happens, show Ethan this. But then you had her arrested before she could reach out again. I didn't know what to do. I thought sending you the photo after her death would make you see." Ethan's throat constricted. He sank into a chair, his hands trembling. "Why didn't you come forward earlier?" Clara looked down, shame clouding her eyes. "Because Mark came to me, too, after Lila died. He threatened me, said if I said a word, I'd lose my job or worse." The room felt heavy with the weight of her confession. Ethan's mind spun with fury, grief, and a rising determination. Mark hadn't just manipulated him. He'd orchestrated everything. "Do you still have the originals?" Ethan asked quietly. Clara nodded. "Yes. Photos, messages, even a recording Lila left on my phone. I didn't delete it. I was too afraid, but maybe it's time." Ethan's heart pounded. "Please," he said, voice raw. "Let me hear it." Clara unlocked her phone, scrolled, and pressed play. Lila's voice filled the room, soft, trembling, but steady. "Ethan, if you're hearing this, it means something went wrong. I don't know what's happening, but Mark's been coming around too much lately. He says things that make me uncomfortable. I think he's jealous of you, or maybe of us. He was in your study earlier. Please don't be angry, but check your drawer. If anything happens, remember, I never took your money. I love you." Ethan pressed a hand to his mouth, his body shaking with silent sobs. Clara looked away, tears glistening in her own eyes. When the recording ended, there was only the hum of the fluorescent lights. Ethan rose slowly, wiping his face. "Thank you, Clara," he said quietly. "You just gave me what I needed." She hesitated. "What will you do?" Ethan's eyes darkened. but his voice remained calm. What should have been done a long time ago. As he left the clinic, the weight of Lila's words burned in his mind. The world outside seemed colder, sharper. Mark thought he had erased every trace of his crime, but he had underestimated the one thing stronger than guilt, a father's resolve. Ethan drove home in silence, the recording playing again and again through his car speakers. Every word etched deeper into his soul, feeding a new kind of fire, calm, deliberate, and unstoppable. The storm wasn't over. It was only gathering strength. Night had fallen by the time Ethan reached home, but the darkness around him felt different now. Alive, electric, humming with purpose. He placed Noah gently in his crib, kissed his forehead, and stood watching for a long moment. The baby stirred slightly, clutching Ethan's finger in his tiny hand. That simple, fragile grip sent a wave of strength coursing through him. He wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. He was fighting for redemption, for Lila, for Noah, and for the man he had once failed to be. Ethan spent the next 2 days meticulously gathering everything Clara had given him. The photos, the voice recording, the old envelope with the crisp $100 bill. Every detail told a story Mark thought had been buried. But now, the truth had claws, and Ethan intended to let it tear through every lie. Still, vengeance wasn't enough. Lila had believed in goodness, even when life had crushed her. Ethan owed it to her memory to seek not chaos, but truth. He began with quiet precision. He called a friend from the bank, a man still loyal to him despite the scandal. "I need access to Mark Turner's financial records," Ethan said calmly. "Personal and professional. I'll explain later." By the next morning, the documents arrived anonymously on his doorstep, neatly sealed. Ethan sifted through them at the kitchen table as dawn's first light filtered through the curtains. What he found chilled him. Over the past year, Mark had funneled small amounts of money, $500 here, $1,000 there, into a private account under a false name. The withdrawals matched dates when company funds had gone missing, minor discrepancies that Ethan had once ignored. It was a trail of deceit, hidden beneath polite smiles and forged paperwork. And then there was a note from Clara. "Check the security archives. Day of the theft." Ethan's hands shook as he logged into the old security system from his laptop. Hours of footage, time stamps flickering. He scanned frame after frame until his breath caught. There he was, Mark, entering Ethan's study, glancing around, then slipping something from his jacket into the drawer. The missing envelope. Seconds later, he took out a bill, folded it, and placed the empty envelope back. The evidence was undeniable. Ethan leaned back, exhaling shakily. "You did it, Lila," he whispered. "You left me the truth." But exposing Mark wasn't just about revenge. It had to be public, undeniable, irreversible. Ethan wanted the world to see what had been done to his wife. That evening, he made a call to a journalist who had once interviewed him during his career peak, Amelia Hart, an investigative reporter known for her integrity. She owed him a favor, and Ethan knew this story was the kind she couldn't resist. When she arrived the next morning, her eyes widened at the sight of him, tired, gaunt, but burning with purpose. "Ethan," she said softly, "you look like you've been through hell." "I have," he replied quietly, "and I'm ready to walk back through it, one last time." He laid out the evidence piece by piece. The financial records, the recording, the photo, the video footage. Amelia's professional calm gave way to disbelief, then anger. This is enough to destroy him," she murmured, "and to clear Lila's name." "That's all I want," Ethan said. "Let the world know she was innocent. Let her rest." Amelia nodded, her eyes fierce. "Consider it done." The next day, the headline exploded across every major outlet. Bank executive frames pregnant woman for theft. Evidence reveals fatal cover-up. The article was brutal, detailed, and irrefutable. The footage was released publicly. Lila's recording played on every news channel, her voice trembling but pure. The world heard her final plea, her faith, her heartbreak. Mark's career imploded overnight. The board suspended him immediately. Police reopened the case, and reporters camped outside his house. Ethan watched it all unfold from his living room, the baby monitor beside him. Justice, at last had a heartbeat. But for Ethan, victory felt hollow. No headline could bring Lila back. No amount of exposure could erase the image of her being taken away in handcuffs. Still, as he watched the world finally see her truth, he felt something deep inside him begin to heal, a wound that had been festering with guilt.